Every book begins before the first sentence. It begins with an irritation, a question, an encounter, or a pattern the writer can no longer leave alone. Across the years, I've written about consciousness, intuition, spirit communication, ritual, identity, narrative, and the hidden structures through which human beings make meaning. But a title can tell you only so much. So in this series, I introduce these books one at a time, not through summaries, not through advertisements, through the questions that made them necessary. This is The Written Unknown, a brief encounter with the books of Dr. Juan Carlos Rey. What does it actually mean to command your life? Not control everything around you, not dominate another person, not force reality to obey. Command. That distinction became the beginning of the architecture of command. I wrote this book because the language of magic has accumulated an enormous amount of confusion. For some people, magic means spectacle. For others, it means superstition. For others still, it becomes a promise that sufficiently intense desire can somehow bully reality into cooperation. None of those definitions interested me very much. What interested me was the older and harder question beneath them. What happens to a human being who deliberately trains attention, intention, language, ritual, repetition, emotion, posture, timing, and behavior toward a chosen end? Because whatever else magic may be, it has always been concerned with directed change. And directed change requires more than wanting. That became one of the central propositions of the book. You can desire a different life and remain structurally organized around the old one. You can perform a ritual for courage while continuing to rehearse avoidance. You can speak endlessly about abundance while making every meaningful decision from fear. You can ask for transformation while returning each day to precisely the state that built the conditions you're trying to escape. That contradiction fascinated me, because command isn't proven by what you declare. It's revealed by what you repeatedly return to. This is where the architecture of command moves away from the caricature of magic as wish fulfillment. The book asks what command looks like when we treat consciousness as something that can be trained. Attention can be trained, language can be trained, emotional regulation can be trained. Behavior can be rehearsed until it becomes easier to access under pressure. Ritual can create boundaries around time, intention, and action. Symbols can organize attention. Repetition can alter expectation. And expectation can change what a person notices, anticipates, remembers, and eventually does. None of that requires us to strip magic of mystery. It requires us to become more exact about what mystery is being asked to accomplish. A ritual may not place the universe under your command. It may place you under an agreement with yourself. That, to me, is far more interesting, because once a ritual has been performed, the real question begins. Who walks away from the altar? Is it the same person who approached it? Do they make the same decisions? Do they tolerate the same humiliations? Do they return to the same habits? Do they speak in the same way? Do they keep waiting for a result that their own behavior continually prevents? Magic becomes trivial when it's used to avoid human agency. It becomes serious when it reorganizes it. This is why the word architecture matters. A building doesn't stand because one brick passionately wishes to become a cathedral. It stands because forces have been arranged. Load is distributed. Structure supports intention. There are thresholds, supports, boundaries, openings, and points of failure. Human becoming has an architecture as well. We're shaped by what we practice, what we repeat, what we permit, what we reward, what we refuse, and the states from which we keep making decisions. That's why one of the principles running through my work matters so much here. Different states make different decisions. A frightened state makes a different decision from a regulated one. Humiliation produces different choices than dignity. Urgency sees possibilities that patience doesn't. Grief, lust, anger, devotion, exhaustion, and confidence each alter the world we believe we're standing inside of. So command begins partly with the ability to recognize who's making this decision, which version of me is speaking, what state has acquired authority, and do I want that state designing what happens next? That's a magical question. It's also a deeply deeply psychological one. This is where the architecture of command intersects with my relational topology of consciousness. The self isn't sealed. We are continuously shaped through relationship, language, memory, expectation, culture, and the responses of other people. So command can't mean pretending we're untouched by the world. It means developing enough awareness to recognize what is acting upon us before we automatically become its instrument. A family can install commands. A religion can install commands. A lover can too. Humiliation can rearrange how command works. A dead parent can continue issuing instructions decades after the funeral. A sentence spoken to you at 14 can become an invisible authority inside decisions you make at 70. Not every command sounds like a command. Some sound like people like us don't do that. You're too sensitive. Be realistic. Don't embarrass your family. You should be grateful. You'll never make a living doing that. And after enough repetition, the speaker disappears. The command remains. Eventually, you begin issuing it to yourself. So, one of the book's deepest concerns is authorship. Who gets to speak inside your decision-making machinery? Which inherited instructions still deserve authority? Which rituals strengthen your agency and which merely decorate your avoidance? Which identities are chosen? Which are rehearsed so often that they feel inevitable? Magic becomes, in part, the discipline of interrupting automatic obedience. Not rebellion for its own sake, conscious authorship. That's also why I use the phrase human becoming. I don't think the self is a finished object waiting to be discovered somewhere beneath all the noise. We become through repetition, through relationships, through decisions, through the meanings we keep rehearsing, through what we do after the feeling passes. That's why the discipline matters more than the declaration. Anyone can say, I'm changing. Command asks, what did you do differently when the old state returned? I wrote The Architecture of Command for people who are fascinated by magic but unwilling to abandon discernment. For ritual practitioners who want to understand why some practices alter their lives while others become theater. For people interested in consciousness, self-regulation, symbolism, discipline, intentionality, and the psychological structure of transformation. And I wrote it for anyone who's ever wondered why wanting something desperately wasn't enough to become capable of receiving it. The book doesn't promise omnipotence. Quite the opposite. It begins with limits. Your body has limits. Time has limits. Other people have wills of their own. Reality contains conditions you didn't choose. Command doesn't abolish those conditions. It asks what kind of person you'll become inside of them. That's the part of magic I find worthy of a lifetime. Not the fantasy that everything will obey you. The discipline required to discover whether you can stop obeying everything that has already taken command of you. So the central question of the book isn't how do I make reality do what I want it to do? It's what must become organized within me so that my intentions survive contact with reality. The Architecture of Command, Magic, Consciousness, and the Discipline of Human Becoming, written by Dr. Juan Carlos Rey. A book about magic, certainly, but even more than that, a book about what happens when desire acquires structure, intention acquires discipline, and a person begins examining who or what has been giving the orders. This is the written unknown, where every book begins with the question that refused to leave.